All right, we are back. Thank you again for joining me on another video. My name is Pat from Like Attracts Like Mentorships, and today I want to talk about 3 very powerful tips that you can use to help shift unwanted or negative thought patterns in your life. And I also want to talk about why it is so important that we do this process. What is the benefit of becoming more aware of your thoughts and how they respond and interact with you in a physical reality? All right, so the first tip that I would like to offer you to help change your unwanted or disturbing or negative thought patterns is to understand that all thoughts are neutral. I'm going to pull up something here for you called the Law of Hypnotic Rhythm. I have a couple of podcast episodes on this. I will link them in the description for you if you feel called to check this out a little bit further. But essentially, it is referenced from the book by Napoleon Hill called Outwitting the Devil. And it really does do a really good job of allowing us to understand this theory, this method, if you will, of realizing that all thoughts are neutral until we decide to charge them with an emotion based on our story or our perception of life or reality in some way. So I'm going to pull this up for you so we can take a deeper dive into it. All right, so here we go. This is the Law of Hypnotic Rhythm, and what it basically describes is the understanding, if you could see right up here, first, all thoughts begin as neutral until we charge them with an emotion. So imagine anything that you are claiming, this thought or this idea, this part of your story, you're claiming it as your own, and we become attached to whatever the thought process is or the story is, and we confirm it as part of our identity. And this universe, this world, shows back to you as a reflection of what you believe, what your identity is, who you are being in this world. Who you are being in the world is made up of your belief system about you and the world that you walk through. So a good example to understand how powerful this is, if you're a little bit resistant to it like I was, is to realize that at some point in your life, if you go back a ways, maybe there was something happening in your life and you had thoughts about this situation. You had thoughts about this event. You had thoughts about this relationship. And maybe they were, I could not possibly live without this person. I've just lost my job. What am I going to do? I'll never find another job. I don't know how I'm going to go on and make any headway in my life. I'm such a miserable mess. But pick your own version of whatever those thoughts are. Those thoughts are not your own, and they weren't your own at the time. They are literally hovering in this unseen space of reality or consciousness. And if you allow a certain thought that comes to you or arises through you to be claimed as part of your identity, you will charge it with the emotion that it represents. So I'm not good at anything. I'll never amount to anything. That's not your thought. If this is one of the ones that you're keeping, this is not your own personal thought. This is a thought that exists in the ether. But if you, based on your belief system, identify with that for some reason in your reality and claim it as your own, you've now charged it with whatever emotion you are perceiving attaches to that thought. So if you are charging this emotion with, or this thought with a negative lack-based thinking because you don't believe you're good at anything, you've now taken ownership of this thought that was once neutral. And what will happen is you, through this belief system, your brain is designed to bring to your attention that which you tell it to look for. I reference the punch buggy game quite often in my podcast. If you're unfamiliar with the punch buggy game, it's that game where you and a friend, you're driving down somewhere and you say, every time you see a punch buggy, you get to punch the other person, right? So if we were driving to Florida, on the way to Florida, how many punch buggies do we see if we're not playing the game? If we don't say anything, we see none. We see no punch buggies at all. But on the way back, if I'm like, you want to play the punch buggy game? And we're driving back, how many punch buggies do you see? How many Volkswagen bikes do you see? You see all of them. Why? Because you told your brain to look for it. And if you tell your brain to look for something, it's impartial and it's designed to bring that thing to your attention. So you can see right here, a belief is created from charging a neutral thought with your interpretation of what it means to you based on your story. That belief system tells your reticular activating system, which is the part of the brain that's designed to bring those things to your attention, I want to see more of this. I want to see more of this thing that I believe is part of my identity. And you'll walk around in the world being that thing. As your brain brings these things to your attention, as it literally begins to scan the world of potential realities to bring this thing you've told it to your attention, you'll see it. So if you're unconscious to this hypnotic rhythm, as you see these things, you will interpret these things as evidence of how right you are. Look at that. Look at this evidence of how worthless I am. Look at this evidence of how people are in the world. Look at this evidence of how nothing works out for me. And then if you see enough of that evidence in the world, it will be confirmed for you. You're just confirming your own belief system about the world. It's not the world that is giving you the belief system. We have to shift this. This is why it's so important. But this is how you break the loop. This is how you break the pattern. When you see that we have it backwards, when we think the world is the reason we tell the story, when in fact the world is just confirming our story back to us. So if this goes on long enough unconsciously, again, we are raising awareness here. We are expanding consciousness, right? So what does that mean? It means we're becoming more aware of things. And this is something that if we become more aware of it, and we lift the veil, you will actually be able to make very, very strong improvements on. So if it's confirmed in the world for long enough, you will literally have this conviction about it to the point where you will fight to the death to defend it. You will fight to the death to defend your reality to anyone who is saying you could do better. You should not allow people to treat you that way. You could get a better job where you make more money, or it's possible for you to do something that you love in the world, or whatever it is, whatever the story is that you are struggling with. When you realize that it is the story that's creating the reality that you're walking through, and who you are in the story, the character that you are, the protagonist in the story, is literally walking through and seeing evidence of that potential reality in the world, confirming it back to you and saying, that's why I can't change. That's why I can't do anything. And I'm going to talk to you about why, once we realize this, it doesn't last for many people for long. So I'm going to flip the script back here and join me in 1 second. All right, so here is the deal. Here's why so many people, when they start changing their thoughts or try to do positive thinking or affirmations, here's why it doesn't work for them often. And this is what I would like to offer you as the second part of the process to help you shift the belief once you become aware that all thoughts are neutral. And that is that once you begin to shift the narrative in your mind, because you're like, okay, here's the deal. So maybe he's right. Let's just say, maybe this is right. Maybe the world isn't this way and I can't change because of it. Maybe it is a reflection of what I've been saying. Here's where it gets tricky, because in order for this to work, you have to take full ownership of what you've been saying. You have to take full ownership of the story you've been telling. And so what that requires is for you to, here's number 2, release responsibility from the outside world that you've been blaming for where you are. You have to release responsibility from them as far as where you are and what your potential is to change it. So for me personally, I went through a long journey of blaming other people and the universe and waiting for the other shoe to drop and saying, you don't know my story. You don't know what happened to me when I was a kid. You don't know this, you don't know that. And just victim storying this entire thing. And because I wasn't able to look at the story I was telling, I had evidence of it in the world for sure. Like there's a part of this where it's not just the story you're telling that's being confirmed. There's also life happening to you. You're going to lose people. Other people are going to make choices. There are tragic situations that happen that seem to be beyond our control. For sure. That's the other part of this process. But still, the story you tell about those things and the faith you have about why they maybe needed to happen or why they do happen as a part of life, that's going to be the important part. I, for a long time, was not ready to tell a new story. I was still blaming. So in order for this to work, we have to let go of full responsibility from the outside world as far as giving us permission to tell the story that we're going to tell, or allowing the results that we are going to get by this narrative change that we're going to do. So the second thing, after you, again, 1, realize all thoughts are neutral until we charge them. We charge them based on a lack of information, a lack of awareness, or whatever it is that we need to purge or go through as far as our own subjective lessons that we need in our life. That happens long enough and creates this ridiculous reality that hopefully we're unhappy with, and we start to ask deeper questions. And then when we start to get to the questions of who am I, why am I here, and why does this keep happening to me? The first answer and this is a protection mechanism, the first answer will be because of them or because of this. In order to actually change the story, we have to remove the because of them or because of this, even if we have full evidence of, no, it's because of them. It's because of this. Like, maybe in this weird context it is, but it's not. It's never. It can't be, because we have the ability to move beyond that and tell a different story, because universally a different perspective can exist on every single story. You have to allow that for yourself. So after you release responsibility from everyone else, then we're going to dive into number 3, and the third most important tip to help you change or shift the direction of your thought patterns and then ultimately your behavior in the world. All right, so the third tip is to realize, here we go. Once you actually change your thought patterns, you're aware of them now, you've written them down, you've journaled them, you get it. You are fully able to take responsibility for the story you're telling. You're doing your best to no longer let it scare you. You're writing it down. There's no judgment. You're just like, no, this is what I say. And then absolutely it matches up with the reality that I'm living in. This is who I'm being. This is who I believe I am. And this is what I believe the world is. So in order for me to be something different and get a different result, that has to change. So you start to tell a different story in the world. You start to actually shift your thoughts. You start to shift your story. You start to add more positive aspects and affirmations to your process. And this is where most people are like, rah, rah, positive thinking. It does virtually nothing. Positive thinking does virtually nothing except for the fact that it's very important in the first stages of the game. After you allow these positive thoughts to shift that energy, because it's all energy, there's an energy cloud of your old thought pattern. So to try to change that with a new story, you're fighting a lot of momentum. So allow yourself to be very easy on yourself as you're shifting through the momentum of your old story. If you can get the thought patterns to shift for long enough, then you will actually start to re-identify yourself as this new story. Here's where it gets tricky. You have to make new choices in the world. I can't say this enough. You have to make new choices in the world from the identity of the new character in a world that represents the old character, the old story. So if you have relationships in your life as you're walking through and you used to let people walk on you and you used to go out of your way to people please for your family and you tried to be perfect and control everything so that everybody would think you had it all together. If that was your old story, but the new story is you're going to be more authentic. You're going to be easy on yourself. You're going to set new boundaries. You're going to take care of yourself. You're going to, change jobs completely because the old one, you were doing it for the wrong reasons or reasons that don't now more authentically align with you. That's the new story that you're telling, and you finally are allowing it in this abstract, imaginative aspect of a human being's consciousness, your world, your subjective reality. Your old reality is going to look at you and raise an eyebrow and be like, what's going on here? And the old reality is going to challenge the new version you're trying to be. So you have to make choices in the world for long enough that the mirror of your old choices gets on board and starts to realize like, no, they are authentically this. They are actually this in the world. And what that requires is for you to realize that some people are going to go. Some people are going to leave your life. Some people that you couldn't imagine bouncing on you are going to bounce on you. And it can be tricky. It can be tough. But if you could do your best to just kind of breathe through this and believe not just in yourself, but in the process. It's one thing to believe in yourself, but sometimes believing in yourself gets you so far. It gets you really, really, really far to the edge of this expanding reality, conscious creation game. And there'll become a point where you believe in yourself so much that the game really tests you. Life and reality really tests you, and it will allow this place where you're actually questioning reality itself. You're questioning whether this is worth it. You'll question whether there's something on the other side of it. And all I can do is say that with people that I'm fortunate enough to help from all over the world. And again, what really is important, just my own story and my own evidence of this, is that that's when it matters most. It matters most when you've believed in yourself for so long and you've changed your thought patterns and your behaviors for so long that now you're up against reality itself. In order for you to actually jump into, and literally it'll feel like you're jumping into the reality that you've finally been creating and manifesting in your head for so long. In order for you to do that, you have to make those same choices and be that same person when it feels like all is lost, when it feels like there's absolutely no point, when it feels like reality, God, the universe itself is against you, when there's nothing for you to benefit from it. It seems like there's no reason for you to continue to make these choices. That's when someone who is that thing will effortlessly keep making those choices. Why? Because that's who you are. And this reality needs to know for sure that that's who you are and who you believe you are, not just in your mind, but in your behaviors and in your connection to your own inspiration. Like, this is just who you are. I can't do anything else. This is who I am now. When you get to that point, and you'll know because it will feel like all is lost and there's no point of why am I doing this? That's the old you saying, what's the point of doing this? Because the old you was looking for a reason to be better. When you connect with just being better because it's who you are, then this reality will shift. So what I'm here to offer you as just a little bonus here is if you're in that place right now, stay the course. stay the course, stay strong, stay true to who you are so that it's effortless to make those choices because there's no bonus from the outside world that you're doing it for. Of course, there's going to be benefits. Of course, there's going to be success. Of course, there's going to be better relationships. Of course, there's going to be all those things. But if we're changing our thoughts and changing our behaviors and changing our unwanted narrative and script, because there are these bonus benefits that we want to have, and that's why we're doing it, it's going to be a tricky loop system until you realize that it's just waiting for you to be who you truly are from the inside out. And I personally believe that we are love. I personally believe that we are creation. I personally believe that we all came here with some kind of an authentic gift that we can share. And the more that we let fear move out of the way from the old story and embrace peace and trust and passion within ourselves, that's when the magic happens. And that is when you really start to see the actual shift and transfer from your old story to your new story. Just remember this as we close this out. You can't tell both stories at the same time. That's that icky feeling that you get when you are living one life in reality and desperately want another one. You're getting the one that you're telling the most often. So if you can begin to look at both of these stories and say, like, this is what the old me says, this is what, child trauma me says about myself and the world, and then this is what higher version of me says about myself and the world. You can only tell one story at a time. And even if it feels icky at first because you've been telling the old story for so long, do your best to allow yourself to tell the new story. Believe how powerful you are because you are. There's no other reason to believe it. It's not something you have to force yourself over time. Let yourself understand how powerful you are. And when you sit in that place for long enough, you'll watch your reality change. And that is what I wish for each and every single one of you. We're heading into an absolutely new phase, energetically, consciously, for humanity, really. There's so much happening that looks like this world is falling apart. And I'm just urging you to realize, if you can, from within, that these things have to fall apart, including your thought patterns and your belief systems. They have to fall apart in order for what you've been saying you want, in order for what we as humanity have been saying we want to fall into place. This stuff has to go. It's no longer needed. It's served its purpose, and it's going to be icky for a while as we watch the old structure and paradigm fall. But it's up to us to build the new one, and it starts from here first, from your mind to your heart, and then take inspired action in the world. That's how you're going to make changes. If you are looking to make a personal change with me one-on-one, the one-on-one mentorships are now open. There's a link probably wherever you're listening to this. You can set up a 30-minute call with me to go over whatever it is you're trying to shift one-on-one. I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. The call is absolutely free. 6 weeks. It's very, very powerful. And I'm very excited to share it with each and every single one of you. Until next time, have an amazing day, a wonderful night, and I'll see you then.